Virginia is on the line. Meade, thank you for calling, man. How you doing?
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Hello to
Okay.
this beautiful South.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for taking my call, and I just want to talk a little bit about J.D. Vance. He came to Virginia, not my part of Virginia, but he was in the western part of Virginia, and I noticed that I still have a lot of reservations about him because he panders a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's politics and all that, but he keeps saying he's from Appalachia, and I have a little bit of issue because technically he's not really from Appalachia. He's Middletown, Ohio. Part of Ohio is in Appalachia, but where he was, that's far out of that area.
Oh.
Yeah, and so he was in Radford, Virginia, which is Southwest Virginia, and he was kind of saying, "Hey, I'm one of y'all, and I'm a son of Appalachia and all this," and it seems very, very, just a little bit phony to me. I know
Is there is it
huh?
MEAD?
MEADE.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Thanks. Just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
that's all right. Well, anyway, that's just my observation. And
Interesting, man. I didn't know that. I mean, yeah, people. He's basically. You're telling me that he's a John McCain talking about. Oh, I'm a Appalachia hero. I'm from the Appalachians.
Oh yeah. Well, he also.
But I don't know. According to you, that's what you're saying. And honestly, he does seem like a politician type of a guy. And part of that is maybe his lawyer training, and the type of person to become a politician is going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't judge him too harshly yet, but it is cause for, hey, come on, JD, go ahead.
Oh well, yeah, I agree. That's exactly it. He's when the thing I like about Trump and with all his flaws and all that, but Trump is political definitely, but you can tell he's not he doesn't talk like a politician really.
Yeah, he's much more of a genuine guy.
Yes, if you watch clips of Donald Trump, like going back 40 years ago, he's the same Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he wasn't running for president. He talks the same, and I just think that's very interesting. So my impression of J.D. Vance is he is pretty young, and I think maybe that's just his the way he's trying to create his persona as I'm a poor Appalachia boy. I know he had a rough childhood. His mother was something like a meth addict, and she threw him out of the car, and other things. But I think he is playing that up a little bit. And so also another thing too is that he's trying to win over the Rust Belt. Well, Southwest Virginia is not part of the Rust Belt. It's a different kind of economy. So he was talking about Michigan and Ohio, and he's going to have a different talking point when he's going to different parts of the country, because he can't just say, "Well, I'm Rust Belt for everything." But that was just what I noticed about his speech.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on him, but I was a little disappointed. I was hoping Trump would pick someone else.
Who else is there? Who would be better?
Well, my governor, Glenn Youngkin. Glenn, yeah, we have a governor here, Glenn Youngkin, who flipped. He basically was a Republican. We haven't elected a Republican governor in over 10 years, and he was able to win over suburban soccer moms in Northern Virginia.
Nice.
And he's sort of like, I call him soft MAGA.
Yeah, he seems soft to me. By soft, you mean nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I don't like about him. That's what I don't like about Glenn Youngkin. But go ahead.
Oh, well, that's just the way people are where he was raised. But I think he is very polite. He's kind of like Mr. Rogers. But I think that if Trump had picked Glenn Youngkin, I think Virginia would be I think we would definitely probably go red. But because he picked J.D. Vance, I don't know if what we're going to do this election.
I personally think that J.D. Vance has more mass appeal on the national scale.
Yeah.
And Youngkin, although Youngkin seems kind of like, I feel like he did something that was kind of lame, but most people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're always going to disappoint you eventually on some level.
Well, he's like Trump because he was also not a politician. He was a businessman.
Oh.
And so
Okay.
it's very similar in a way because he's not a career politician. He came in at the very last minute almost, and he came in and we got him elected, and he's very similar that way because he was not a career politician. He has a lot of the same economic policies. Now, socially, I am disappointed. Donald Trump really is not a conservative either on a lot of social issues.
Right.
So it comes with the run-in. But I was hoping to pick Glenn Youngkin, just to see if we could cinch Virginia. But Trump probably doesn't need Virginia to win anyway. He as long as he gets Pennsylvania, and so there's other states.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too long. I wanted to also talk about a couple of weeks ago. You're talking to Daniel, who I think he's really smart. He's a historian,
Yeah, he reads a lot, or has read a lot of history.
Yeah. Well, the question comes up about the Confederate monuments and why were they put up? And because So I've studied a lot. So I live in Richmond, Virginia. Well, so the thing is, the reason they were put up so late, because everyone says, well, it's Jim Crow because, these monuments were put up like 30 or 40, 50 years after the war.
Right.
Well, the truth is that's how long it took to raise the money for them because as you know, Reconstruction happened and there was no money. The widows of the Confederate veterans raised pennies. They raised pennies to get the first Confederate monuments put up about 20 years after the war. They were able to raise enough money to get the Lee Monument put up in 1897, and they did it with donations.
Wow, I hadn't considered this.
Yeah.
They didn't have just money to blow on stuff like this.
No, they had no money. There were some carpetbaggers that made money and scalawags, but a lot of Southerners were dirt poor, even the ones that came from the finest of families. They had no money to do anything. And Reconstruction was the blueprint of socialism. They pretty much confiscated property. They rigged elections. They did a lot of things that were not very American.
I disavow, just for the sake of my channel. I don't know about the rigged elections. But according to you, they rigged elections.
Yeah, and ironically,
I disavow.
Okay, you can disavow. Well, that was ironically that was the GOP that was doing this,
right? Because they were the red Republicans, the socialists, some of them, Marxists.
Yes, and they also what they did, they started the 13th and 14th, 15th Amendments. 14th Amendment was terrible.
Anchor babies.
Yeah,
but it wasn't meant for anchor babies. It was just the slaves. The slaves who were born and raised here for generations became citizens.
Yes,
and there was something else. But what was it? Why was that wrong?
Well, the 14th Amendment it did other things too. It sort of I studied this. It sort of had a impact on what we're going through now, like with because they also made it so like if you were a Confederate, you couldn't ever run for office again.
Oh yeah.
So that's what they tried to do.
Oh, the insurrectionist clause.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
Yeah,
Shameful.
that's what they tried to do with Donald Trump. They used the 14th Amendment. So all these things were not good, and they're put in by the early GOP, which I think is a totally different party. I know a lot of you have people like Mark Levin and all the Lincolnites will say, "Oh, we're the party of Lincoln," but we are not the party of Lincoln. Thank heavens. But anyway, so back to the Confederate monuments. I just want to say, so the reason they put them up was because it was for reconciliation. That was the main goal.
Wow. Exactly.
Yeah, they wanted reconciliation. It wasn't Jim Crow. It wasn't anything else like that, and the narrative that it was Jim Crow or something like that came years later, and that's just a lie, because they just didn't have the money.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to touch on also, and I hope you don't mind me asking, so I noticed that you sort of have an affinity for the flag and the Confederacy, and did you ever do any research to see if you had any Confederate ancestors?
No, I haven't done any type of research like that. I know that my grandpa has some history in Virginia, and one of my great-great-grandpas, according to my mother, I don't know if it's true, was almost burned at the stake, maybe by American Indians. Did American Indians burn people at the stake, or was it just radical Christians? I don't know.
I don't know. I think they scalped people.
Right. I don't really know. I don't really know, and don't really care. It'd be cool if it were true.
Yeah, well, I just wonder because I mean, you don't seem like a typical Californian to me. So I just wondered if you had like more roots in Virginia or Kentucky or somewhere.
My grandpa was Virginia. My grandma was New Jersey. My other grandma was Iowa, I think, and my other grandpa was a bit of a mystery. But. And isn't that interesting? I think that it's more manly not to be so concerned and caught up with roots and this identity thing, this physical identity thing. It's good to have like a strong brotherhood with your family, I think, or with people. But it's also good not to be caught up in that stuff. You notice blacks are all into it. Women are all into it, and it's just all out of order. And so I think that whites may be falling into that trap too.
Well, it's good to know see, for me, it's hard. I mean, it's so much like part of our history. See, I come from the early settlers of Virginia and South Carolina, so I have everything is in a book.
Yeah.
But the Bible warns us not to be caught up in endless genealogies.
Yep.
But you want to know you should know a little bit about your family history, a little bit, because it helps you understand a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. You don't want to get caught up into it. But I just wonder, because you seem like you might have Confederate in you.
Maybe. I wasn't raised anti-Confederate or pro-Confederate. I remember we watched the Dukes of Hazzard, and it had the Confederate flag, and I always thought it was cool. I remembered being in school, I thought the North was the good guys and the South was the bad guys. I just thought that. But now I see that there were very fine people on both sides, I guess. I don't see that, but I imagine that.
Yeah.
And evil people on both sides, I suppose.
Yeah, and I agree with your assessment that as far as slavery, there were good and bad slave owners, I think.
Yeah.
I think and people like I forgot your last caller's name, but he's looking at things through a 21st century lens. You have to remember, these are people that lived before electricity. They didn't know a lot that we do now anyway, and their worldview was very small. I mean, you didn't travel very much, and the Bible itself, in a way, condones slavery in a way. And a lot of slaves here in America it was rather benevolent for them. And I even read that slaves would get 2 weeks off for Christmas.
Wow.
And yeah,
kind of like school children. That was fun.
They could visit nearby plantations, and they could also, on their birthday, they would get a biscuit on their birthday.
Wow.
The average slave worked about 13 hours a day, but that was also typical of most people. Most people work from sun up to sundown, so the average slave did not work much more than the average person.
Based. See?
So anyway, that's a few points I wanted to bring up, but I really enjoy your show, and I hope you have a nice afternoon.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Meade in Virginia. Take care, man.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Oh, Meade says, I disavow all other Meade opinions. Nice.